Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Scaling Brokerage Podcast. Today, Randy has been nice enough to bless us with some of his time, share some of his experiences in real estate and as a brokerage owner. So, kick it right off to Randy. Let him tell us a little bit about himself and his business.
Hi, my name is Randy Merino. I am a SoCal born and raised realtor. I like to take pride in knowing that I guess I could tell you what's on every corner of every street in LA County. I think that's how long I travel close to 50,000 miles a year, just, exploring my city and exploring, new homes with clients. I've been in the business about 20 years, since 2004. I've been through the first market crash. I've been through some, good times and some bad times. And just like every other business, right? You're going to have your extremely good times. You're going to have your decent times. You're going to have your bad times.
Oh, yeah.
It's really just trying to get that a little above the middle and trying to stay consistent there as much as you can. And that's I think that's where you always want to be, But thanks, Jake, for having me on. It's going to be fun, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And take us back a little bit to, you said 2004 is when you got started, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Take us all the way back, man. What was the first kind of step into real estate for you?
Man, so I was going to Long Beach Community College. I remember I was 19 years old, and I was really I sometimes, I tell, friends, I even tell my wife, like, at that time I felt like at 19 years old I was already having like a midlife crisis. You know what I mean? Like, what am I gonna do with my life? I'm 19 years old and I have no direction, and I was already having those thoughts. It's like, what am I going to do? Right. And I was going to school for fire tech and fire science. I wanted to, be an arson investigator, maybe even a firefighter. That's kind of where I was. I always, thought that was really a cool, place to be in. And I always liked working outdoors. I never thought I'd be in an office setting. I used to, in high school, I used to build race cars.
Nice.
And some of my really good friends, actually, they have a really cool race shop in Cerritos. And I think that if I hadn't gotten into this business, I probably would be building race cars with them as well if I didn't pursue the whole fire tech, fire science, thing. But I remember there was a friend, his name was Richard. He was a car guy and he had just gotten into the business. I actually started originating loans before I started selling real estate. And I did that for close to 7 years before I made the switch when they required the whole NMLS. I didn't pursue the whole NMLS license at the time. But he introduced me to another gentleman. His name was Steve Lara, that at the time owed United by Lending. And he was telling me, like, oh man, these guys, they're doing well, they're making all sorts of money, and you got to meet them, and so on and so forth. And I was like, what the heck is, loans and selling real estate? I had no idea. Buying homes was never really like a thought in my head. So I remember pulling up to his parking lot and there was like really nice cars there. And I'm like, wow. 19 years old, I remember sitting down with this guy, Steve. And the one thing I remember coming out of that meeting, he would tell me, Randy, in life, there are doers and there are thinkers, right?
Yeah.
Doers drive the nice cars and have the nice houses. Thinkers watch the doers have the nice cars and have the nice houses. And that's always resonated with me. It's like, dude, yeah, you got to be a doer in life. Anything you do, you commit, you do it. You know what I mean? And I think that's what it's, excelled in my life. I mean, look, man, I'm just a poor kid from South Central LA. You know what I mean? Like, I grew up with very minimal, I grew up in poverty, man, to be honest with you,
Sure.
And I think the one thing that's always catapulted me in life and made me the person that I am is that I've always been persistent. You know what I mean? I've never taken no for an answer. I've always said, let's do it. If we're going to do it, let's do it. Let's go. You know what I mean? Let's, I don't just talk the talk. I walk the walk, I want to say, so, and I think that's very important because I think if you just dream about things and if you don't make it into reality, it's just always going to be a dream, so, and that's kind of where this whole brokerage idea came,
Oh, nice.
just to give you a background of like the overview of what we started.
Yeah.
I was working at Rodeo Realty in Beverly Hills, right? And I was there for about 4 years. And in those 4 years, at the time, I think they had about 1,600 agents. I was always in the top 10%. Like the moment I started with the ground running. I took like I think 9 or 10 listings that I left my old brokerage and I went there and just hit the ground running. And in the 4 years that I was there, I was always in the top 10%, right? Um, and I would always ask, hey man, the broker, I would always ask him, even the manager is like, hey, I think I've outgrown my split. I don't really need any of your training. I don't need you, right? Can
Yeah.
you can you raise my split? Um, and they wouldn't, they we'll talk about it. And then it was always like, tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it got to the point where I was like, okay, well, if you're not going to give me a split, because I was, paying close to, I'd say at the time it was 2011, 12, right when I started, I was paying like if you do the math with the splits, I was paying like $5,000 a month just to be in a cubicle, you know? Yeah. So I was like, hey man, if you're not going to give me a higher split, can you at least give me a private office, right? And that still was a no. And I get it because it was Beverly Hills, and for that company, that was like their flagship, right? Like I
Yeah.
think they had like 12 offices. Um, and if you're not selling Beverly Hills, then you don't get preferential treatment. At least that's what I always thought. So I spoke to in my areas of selling was all of LA County, Orange, San Bernardino,
Oh, nice.
Riverside County. So I'm all over the place, right? And I've always thought like, because some people will say, oh well, I'm not going to go that far because um it's not my area, but the dollar doesn't lose value because you're crossing county or city lines. It's still the same dollar. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely. Yeah.
sometimes I would get a hard time. The other agents would give me a hard time, like, "Oh, you sell this area, you sell that area." Well, at the end of the day, I'm still selling more properties than you, which
Yeah.
means that I'm making more money than you. So give me all the hard time you want. I'm doing all right.
Absolutely.
Um, so I was there 4 years, and at the time was just I left it off. I left the brokerage in extremely good terms. I actually still talk to the broker and the old manager and a lot of agents that are still there.
Oh, nice.
Um, but I left and I told him, look, man, I think I'm just gonna open up my own brokerage, and I did in 2014. I partnered up with a buddy of mine, and here we are. So although I'm not partners with him anymore because he wanted to do humanitarian work. So we started doing a lot of humanitarian work like in Africa. His heart wasn't in it anymore after a few years. So yeah, so that ended how so I just ended up actually at the time taking my broker's license test and getting my broker's license, and I just kind of took over the business, and so here we are. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that's awesome. And I like to point out too the fact that, even with, maybe other agents making comments, things like that, we're still going where the deals are. And that can be huge for, a newer agent maybe getting started in today's market. Even a newer broker, I'm trying to help their agents out, trying to help them point them in the right direction. It's like some of our markets, sometimes our territories can be, a little oversaturated by, agents in the office, other colleagues. So you end up branching out into maybe a little bit further of a drive, put a little bit more miles on the car. But if that leads to us, ultimately, reaching our goals and doing what we want to do, within the year, within 5 years, whatever your timeline for your goals are, that's awesome. That you're able to kind of find that, not, we don't want to say niche, but more so find that, where we're needed in the market, and find where, we're got in where we can fit in essentially.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. And I love that, we were able to do that while still having, some agents and maybe others kind of badgering us a little bit about it.
Yeah.
That's awesome that you still stuck with it and still triumph through it. That's awesome.
Yeah, you can't let it discourage you, man. And you got to go. It's I unless you're doing double digits in the city, and if I remember an agent that does a lot of the valleys, a good friend of mine who actually just co-listed a property last month, and he told me, look, man, unless you're doing, I think he's mentioned something 15 or 20% of the total business in your area, in specific area, you got to go out somewhere else too. You gotta keep the wheels moving. You know what I mean? And I get it. Unless you're doing double digits, you got to go where you're called. Because you can't. If you really want to survive and make it in this business, you got to go where duty calls. You know what I mean? Obviously, you're not. I'm not encouraging you to drive 5-6 hours to, make a sale, because, you're going to go somewhere in Central California where you're going to make a $200,000 purchase, and it's going to end up costing you more money than what you would make. You know what I mean? And look, and that happens sometimes. I can't tell you how many times I've done a deal where I've had to give up a commission because there's been a reduction in appraised value, or in order to make the deal work, you have to you sometimes have to take a loss. You know what I mean? And I've always, with my agents here, I've always preached it's very important to be people driven, and then money is just is like the collateral effect of
kind of
doing a good job. You know what I mean? Like, people appreciate that, and believe it or not, people see right through that. Like, if you're commission driven, if you're money driven, people will see right through that, and that may be the only transaction you'll ever do with them. You know what I mean? And it's important to, I think in 20 years, because 95% of my business is all referral based.
Absolutely. Building those bridges is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
And I've built those referrals because I genuinely want to take care of my people. You know what I mean? I want the best for my clients, and I fight like a dog when it comes to negotiating best terms for them, to making sure that once they walk through the threshold of that house, they're not going to get that, they don't feel like they've gotten ripped off. Because I can't tell you how many sellers that I've met that the previous agent worked, they're like, man, this guy, he just wanted to sell me the house. He didn't care about inspections. He didn't care about following through with how I moved into my house. He just collected his check and then moved on. And I think it's important to educate your client as much as you can, right? That way, in turn, they can make an educated decision. Because if someone walks into their home and they don't know what the hell they just bought, that's a very ugly feeling.
Absolutely. No, and I mean, a home purchase is usually most people's biggest purchase they make in their lifetime.
Absolutely.
So having an agent that we really feel like is there for us, and especially if we can see him go to bat, or defend anything we can see, obviously is helpful. But then having that feeling of we're not just another notch on the belt. They're actually really wanting to care for us, and wanting to take care of us. Building that bridge. And I know I mentioned before, we don't know who else is going to come across the bridge. So and like you mentioned, 95% of your production being on the referral based side, that comes from years of building our network, treating people the way we want to be treated, kind of following the golden rule. I know it's a little more childish, but it definitely shows that it pays off. And you're a living example of that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, we take pride in building that referral network. I can't tell you how many clients have called me and tell me, hey, so and so referred me, Joe referred me, Sally referred me, he said you can help us. And like that is a huge compliment, because that tells you help that person, and they're confident in your ability to help whoever they're referring, right? Because at the end of the day, if I refer someone to someone that's going to help them, that's an extension of myself, right? And if that person that I referred is not happy with the services they received, that makes me look bad. You know what I mean? So like, that's another lesson that I've learned, like in this business, just when I first started, is really who you vouch for, right? Because when you vouch for someone, that's an extension of yourself. And if you vouch for someone and they screw up, it just messes up your whole reputation and just really makes it look bad, because your name and really your honor is what you have to protect, right? Like with clients, I like to say that I build a special relationship with a lot of my clients, and whether it be relating to something that they do, like a hobby, or really taking care of their family when it comes to getting them into a home. I think building relationships that will last forever is super important in this business. For instance, yesterday when you called me, to confirm, one of my clients, he's actually a firefighter, and he's here in Southern California, and he got a bunch of chickens, right? And I have somewhat of a background in construction, so yesterday I was helping him build a coop at a new house that I sold him like 3 months ago, So those are memories that people would cherish. Those are actions that people
Yeah.
cherish. And I mean, I don't do it out of, wanting to get something back. I do it because I genuinely want to do it. I want to help. I want them to feel whole. And like, man, Randy's someone I can depend on for pretty much anything that I want, that I need. So that's kind of where I stand is helping as much as I can, just building that relationship with clients and essentially calling them, your friends at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So,
No, and that's an awesome reminder. Anytime he goes into the backyard and sees the chicken coop there, he's gonna remember who helped him put it up. So no, that's awesome. That's awesome. I wanted to dive into a little bit. I know we kind of went back and forth. And spoke a little bit about some of the challenges you might have faced. Is there anything specifically that you've ran into since being a broker, maybe while you're on the agent side? A specific challenge you had to navigate that you felt like might be helpful for any listener out there?
yeah. So, gosh, when we first opened up our brokerage with my old partner, his name is Lino, we made a ton of mistakes, and it wasn't even like, anything in life nowadays, when you're a kid, you make a mistake, you get a bad grade, right? You go to school, you
Yeah.
make a mistake in your homework, you get a bad grade. Now you make a mistake when you're an adult, guess what? It costs you money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, mistakes cost money in life now. And a lot of the mistakes that we made when we opened up our own brokerage was really lack of knowledge, and mismanagement of paperwork. Because the Department of Real Estate, man, they drag their feet here in California. They drag their feet, right?
Yeah.
So anything you submit today is probably going to take you 2 to 3 months to get approved. So I remember the first mistake that we made was when we submitted our documents to get our corp licensed. I think my partner made a typo on one of the documents. They kicked it back, and then we had to resubmit. So the whole process took like 3 months just to get this thing, just so we could actually start working, right?
Oh man.
And also too is just, I'd say before, if anyone's gonna before you pull a trigger, really do your research on like insurances, what you want to call your brokerage, and how long it's going to take to get the wheels moving, because last thing you want to do is to be stagnant and not be able to work. So that's some of the errors that we made, just having the wrong information too. As far as submitting documents, sometimes I remember we submitted documents that didn't need to be submitted, and then that also took time and money too, because every time you submit a licensing for a corporation with the department, you have to pay a licensing fee. you
Yeah.
know and I mean, just like the IRS, they'll take your money, but they're right away, but they're slow to return it. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and just one of the things too is when you start recruiting. So we have a number of guys here, right? That and gals that work with us, and I'd like to say that in the time that I've been doing, selling real estate, one of the abilities that I've learned is just really how to read people, right? How to get their energy and how to
Yeah.
get, a good feel for who this person is, right? And I think really the important things is learning how to vet brand new agents, because just how I mentioned before, there's you're gonna have your agents that are money driven, and they're going to be agents that are people driven, right? The ones that are money driven, I come to find out, that usually cause a higher liability, right? Um, just simply because they don't care. They just want to collect a check, move on to the next. And I know a few agents like that in this industry that are local, that are like that, and those, it's crazy because those people, not surprising actually, they're always struggling to find new business.
Yeah.
They don't have any return clientele. They're constantly marketing themselves out there, and then at the end of the day, eventually that well is going to run dry.
Yeah. Oh no,
When you
absolutely.
have no one to turn to because you haven't taken care of anyone, you're going to make those phone calls to your sphere of influence, and they're going to tell you to go kick rocks because, hey man, like, no, you didn't do a good job for us.
Yeah.
So it's important to take pride in your work, and really, again, educate your clients, take care of them. That is the utmost important thing, I think, in really in any line of business, really, just not just real estate.
Yeah.
People appreciate that.
Yeah, no,
you know
absolutely. I think something that's synonymous with all, accomplished, I should say, I was respected, accomplished brokerage owners that have been on the podcast, that's usually the number one theme that kind of coincides with all of you guys included. Is that taking care and putting our best foot forward, putting that best foot forward for our potential customer, client, whoever it may be, goes a long way. And those relationships can last, and they can bring over other people we would have never even thought of, and kids and friends and family, all that combined.
And one thing I want to throw out there too is it's as small as it might seem. And I think when you called, I didn't do this because I get a million spam calls.
Oh yeah,
it's and it was from an unfamiliar area code, but it's always important to answer your phone with a smile, because people they'll know when you don't answer your phone with a smile. It's like, hey, am I bothering you? Like, no, hey, what's up? People know when when you're answering your phone with a smile. And lastly, too, if you make mistakes, learn from them. Don't make that mistake again, because they are costly. And an even better lesson is to learn from someone else's mistakes. So that's what I got to say about that, as far as navigating the challenges that we've encountered when we first opened the brokerage.
I love it. And just diving a little bit more into the marketing lead gen side. Do you guys do anything to market the brokerage, to get leads for the agents? Anything to recruit?
So that's the golden question, right? Everyone wants to know, what do you do to get leads? Well, I mean, first and foremost, your sphere of influence, and it's very important. Your sphere of influence is calling the people you already know, because there's a high probability that if 10 people, 50 people, 100 people, there's going to be someone that wants to, buy a house or sell a house or refinance their home or have something to do with real estate, right? I mean, you have, the baby boomers now. You have, now people that are in my age group now purchasing homes as well too. And there's always someone that wants to do something. Or even, again, if you just have to plant that seed, right? You call a friend that's been thinking about, purchasing a home, but they don't know what to do. It's your job to educate them. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, I've had clients that I've called, and I have a friend that I've called, but hey man, like, what do we have to do to buy a house? And I've had some clients in the past where they tell me, I thought you had to have hundreds of thousands of dollars, 20% down, 30% down to purchase a house. I didn't know you can purchase a house with 3.5% down, and that's where, like, their lack of knowledge is not their fault. It's our job to educate them, right? Like, no, you don't need 20% down to purchase a house. You can buy it with as little as 3.5% down. I mean, in some cases, even less than that, So it's very important sphere of influence. I remember when I first started, I didn't know anyone that wanted to buy or sell. What I did is I got on my phone and I called everyone on my phone list. And I'm not kidding you, that first day, I got my first deal from a family member.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just because I made the calls, like, hey, do you know anyone who wants to refinance, purchase a house, or sell a house? And it's just making that communication and just contacting, right? So I don't know if you ever seen that movie, Boiler Room. Have you ever seen the movie Boiler Room?
No, it sounds familiar.
It's like a stock, it's the core of the movie is not good, but it's entertainment, right? But I remember one of the quotes that one of the guys said was that this sport is a contact sport, meaning the more people you contact, the more money you're going to make.
Yeah.
So if the more people you contact, the more money you're going to make. So if you're quiet, out of sight, out of mind, no one's gonna reach out. You know what I mean? You have to make those calls. You have to be, a broker without their phone is like a soldier without a gun at a war. So you have to use the tools that are available to you. So it's just making those calls and keeping. I think sphere of influence is very important. I think that's number one, right? To break into a market, to do, to send out flyers and postcards. I mean, you would have to do a lot of that to break into a market. It's just repetitive. People see you often and often, but that could get expensive, right? A lot of what I started doing not too long ago was doing what do you call it? Google marketing, right? You can get like what do you call it? Guaranteed clicks or whatever. I'm not too sure. My Google manager does that. But we do Google marketing. I don't do so much Yelp because unless you pay them, they don't really show your profile. They're expensive too. So if you get started, you'd be surprised what like a couple $100 with like Google marketing can do. Even like Facebook in Instagram. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people that are doing very well on social media marketing, you know, and $100. I mean, imagine $100. The last video we did on Facebook, I think we put $100. I just wanted to test it out, put $100. I had like 17,000 views,
Oh
you
my,
know, and then people start reaching out, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
and just be creative with content, you know. I think, you know, recycling content, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all the same. It's just about making it your own, you know.
Yeah. No, absolutely,
Um,
absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
and
and when I know that's the I think you touched great on the marketing lead gen side. What about recruiting? Do you guys do anything for recruiting over there in the office?
so we've you know, lately we haven't done a whole lot of recruiting, but I think we're going to start recruiting here soon. We're putting together like a plan here. We started actually last year, but we kind of fell behind. So
Okay,
just
I know how
to
crazy you can get.
to train new agents, because I think there's going to be a lot new agents to, you know, getting into the marketplace,
Oh yeah,
and you know it's an ever changing business, you know, and it's a matter of just getting those agents and seeing what we have to offer. You know, at the end of the day, too, is not just selling your program, but it's also selling yourself. You know, it's like meeting a client. Like, why should you list with me? Is since why should I work? Why should they work with me?
yeah,
You know, so you know, we're a small boutique brokerage, but I feel like the agents that we've hired are good people. And I mean, I've had agents call me at 11 o'clock at night, you know, on my brokerage. I'm, hey, Randy, I just got a counter. Like, you know, what do we do? You know, it's like, well, this is what you have to do, you know, and as a new agent, you know, you get things like that. You get excited. It's almost
yeah.
like you
Oh yeah,
can't sleep, you know, um, and you know, I like to build that relationship too, not just with my clients, but with my agents as well, to get them in there and make them feel good about working here, you know. So one last thing I wanted to touch on about marketing too is, you know, a lot of people are afraid to either reach out to other agents or, you know, make friends with them, let's say on Facebook, and just, you know, collaborate with them. Because I'll tell you, Jake, I've had a lot of I've had a lot of offers where they're local agents, and I've gotten an offer accepted simply because I know that agent on a personal level. You know,
oh really?
making those making
Yeah,
relationships with those agents, like, hey man, we've worked together, you know who I work, you know how I work. Let's put something together, man. And sure enough, you know, because you already have a camaraderie with an agent, they'll be enticed to, you know, I guess, recommend your offer, you know, to their seller, as opposed to someone that they may not work with, that
yeah,
they may not know how they worked in the past, or they've never worked with at all. You know what I mean? And I think building relationships with other agents in your business too is very important. Just relationships is key in this business, you know. So
yeah.
yeah,
And that's 100% true too, because they're gonna refer you or someone you know in underneath of you there, before they go with someone that you know they have no clue if they're ethical or have no clue they
right,
are. So yeah,
exactly.
no,
So
that's a great advantage to have in our market. You know, maybe not always you know hitting them hard on the recruiting side, trying to get them to join us, but just having that you know that relationship built with them,
exactly.
that can
So
be huge. I'm not that's not something that I think I've heard a lot of brokerage owners mention as well. So that's awesome. That's awesome that
yeah,
you.
that's important, is building that relationship. Because I can tell you, I could call other agents from this office right now, from other offices, I'm sorry, and like, hey man, let's have the kids hang out and go fishing this weekend. You know, I've done that with some agents. I've, you know, been with other agents in other offices that are pretty big here in the region, and they're, you know, pretty big listing agents that do a lot of business in the region too. And like, hey man, let's you know, it's your kid's birthday party, I'll be there, you know, on Sunday, you know. And it's important to build those relationships with other agents as well. Just so, you know, they know you on a personal level, they know who you are, they know what kind of person you are, and like, hey man, we can work together very well. Because
Yeah,
look, at the end of the day, when you're selling a house, right? And I never understood this, that, you know, if there's a listing side and a selling side, it's almost like sometimes they clash, right? But at the end of the day, we all have the same common goal. We all want to sell a house. We want to get a client into a house. We want to get a client out of a house to sell their house. And at the end of the day, we're going to get paid, right? And if we're clashing all the time, we're never going to achieve that common goal, you know? So I think it's important to really know who you're working with. And believe me, if, you know, obviously if there's multiple offer kind of situation, or you know, the best offer is going to win. But I'd like to say, hey, look, man, this is a good agent. He's ethical. He works
yeah,
great. He's not going to be ridiculous with his requests, etc. You know, so um, I think making relationships with other agents within your region is also
yeah.
important. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And like I said, yeah, and that's something that I haven't heard a lot of the brokerage owners touch on. So it's a great way to separate yourself and set yourself apart from others in your market, in your industry. So that's awesome. And a little bit about the future. What are the goals for this year? Where are you guys headed this year?
So actually, just last week we put in a new DBA for property management. So it's going to be Premier Management. So we're going to start managing properties here. We just hired a new gal here that's been property managing for, gosh, I want to say 10 years. And me personally, I have a few apartment buildings myself, so
Okay.
I'm kind of versed in property management as well. I know what mistakes to make, what not to make, and what to avoid. And so I think with the new agent that we have here that's going to run the property management sector, I think we're going to be pretty well as far as doing that. And a lot of times people don't want to deal with the headaches of property managing. And I just sold units, I think, in December, where the client needs help, finding new tenants, getting, managing tenants, and we're going to take care of that for them. And I can tell you how many agents too is going back is especially when it comes to the multi-unit sales, they'll sell their agent or they'll sell their client a 3-4 unit apartment unit complex, and then they'll just leave them high and dry, right? They won't
Yeah.
tell them, hey man, like, this is what we got to do to find tenants. This is what, how do we vet tenants, etc. And I think that if um, you don't help your client do that, then you're setting them up to fail. So I've had a couple of sellers come to me and tell me, hey man, I have this asset that's, I don't know how to manage it. What can we do? Can we sell it? And before I even tell them to sell it, well, how can we get this asset to work in your favor before we sell it? And sometimes the numbers make sense, sometimes they don't. So yeah, at the end of the day, man, people, they work hard for the money, and especially when they buy multi-units, it's a dream that they have. Sometimes it's like a retirement dream, and
Yeah. Oh
for
yeah.
that dream to just fail simply because they didn't have um the right directions from people who should know how to manage these things. They just that's an ugly feeling as well. So that's part of the reason why we open as management too, to help people achieve and have a well-running machine when it comes to their investments. So that's important to us too. um in the future too, my goal is for all my agents to eventually have their own branch or have their own brokerage. You know what I mean? So we're starting partnerships actually with a couple agents too that they're doing very well, and they want to open up their own location, and,
Oh,
and we're going to
nice.
start doing that as well. Um, and also too, I mean, lastly, touch on is just continue educating ourselves, right? Like, this business is always changing. I mean, just last year we had drastic changes that have flipped this business upside down or right side up, however you want to see it,
Yeah.
right? So it's a matter of educating ourselves to keep us propelled forward, and again, talking to our peers that are outside, our brokerage, outside our circle, right? And just talking about their experiences and what they're seeing in the market, right? Because I think too, a lot of the times people get so convoluted with what's going on in the news that they blow things out of proportion. When in fact,
Yeah.
it's really not that bad. So it's just a matter of just educating ourselves to keep us moving forward. I think that is also important.
I love that. I love that. And I
Yeah.
know those kind of short-term goals, this year. I also want to ask, what are the goals? I know 2030 sounds like, the future almost, or it obviously is. But it sounds very futuristic, I should say. What are the goals by 2030? What would you like to look back by 5
God,
years from now and see yourself have accomplished?
you know, um, without saying my age, hopefully by that time I'm a little closer to retirement. That's always the goal, right? You always set like but we'll see. I set a goal actually for myself to continue buying multi-units. We just purchased one a year and a half ago. Prior to that, we purchased 2018 and then 2017. So we've been purchasing just little by little, right? My wife and I. And eventually, I mean, just like as a broker and as a self-employed person, we don't work for a corporation, right? That's gonna set aside a 401k,
Oh yeah.
right? So I
Yeah.
think it's important to look at the bigger picture and not rely on something like that, but rely on the hard asset like real estate, right? Like, um, the more units that you purchase, obviously it's more income, a month. And it's important to keep on doing that. So you asked me where I want to be in 2030. Maybe not so much in the brokerage side, but I know personally I want to continue purchasing real estate. Um, I want to eventually my associate here, his name is Gio. I want him to start taking a bigger role in the brokerage as well. And he's already stepped up big time. And I owe this guy big because I'm not the best at delegating, right?
I got you.
And he takes care of a lot of like the paperwork, right? That needs to be that a brokerage needs to run, and that in itself could pretty much be a full-time job, is taking care of, we need to pay the rent, we need to pay E&O insurance, we need to pay credits, we need to pay I don't know, whatever other fees that are associated with running a
Yeah.
brokerage,
Oh, yeah.
so we need to pay salary here, so that in itself could even be a full-time job too. And you gotta kind of separate yourself from that, because if you try to do that, then you're not going to be able to um, commit and really pay attention to what's important. That's your clients.
Yeah, yeah, and I know a common thing, especially as we continue to grow. Delegating is something you have to do as a business owner in any facet, but especially in real estate. Having 40, 50, 60 agents all what questions, having maybe different things pop up on their deals. It can be a lot on yourself personally, and then it can be hard for them too to get in touch with you. Find good times to reach you, things like that. So it's always great, yeah, to be able to delegate at least a little bit. Have some others helping at the top there. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And in kind of a little bit in closing too, I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, some advice for some newer brokerage owners. What would be your main point of advice you'd give to someone getting started in today's market?
Just if you're thinking about opening a brokerage, just do it. Just do it. It's the best thing I think I ever did. Don't think about it. Just do it. Especially if you may not feel happy where you're at and you feel like you can do it, just do it. Don't hold back. You're going to make mistakes. That's just inevitable. You're going to make mistakes. Just make sure you learn from those mistakes. And again, even better if you learn from someone else's. Again, talk to other brokers. Like, hey, what do you think that we should do as far as opening a new brokerage? Look at your podcast and listen to your podcast and new broker owners. You know what I mean? It's again, just I can't stress on how important it is to educate yourself, even on opening a brokerage, and just do it. And if you have opened up a brand new brokerage and you're struggling, just keep at it. Keep at it. Keep chugging away. Move like a freight train. You're going to be all right.
I love it. I love it. Again, I actually had a podcast earlier today where one of the ladies mentioned, the worst case scenario, if we end up, back. I mean, maybe obviously some money, time spent, and different things lost, on the money and time side. But our worst case scenarios, we're ending up back where we are now. So
that's true. Yeah,
it's not going to put us, not going to push us down the hill at all.
You can say you did it.
We come back to the hill and maybe we have to set up to retry again in the future. Now we have more knowledge. So I love that advice. If you're thinking about it, don't think about it too long. Just keep going.
That is the worst case. And if that does happen, don't get discouraged. Just retreat, recoup, and then start over again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like you said earlier, learn from the mistakes we made in the past so we can help not repeat those and continue on this time. So
absolutely.
Awesome. What I always like to ask too, Randy, do you have any quotes? I know you mentioned one earlier. From you kind of called back from the movie there. But do you have any quotes, anything you like to think of, when things are going good, maybe when things are going bad, that you like to think back to?
One thing I've preached, and it's funny because my friend always reminds me of this quote, and I don't remember telling him, but it's something I think about too. When you have a problem, don't focus on the problem. Focus on the solution. Because if you focus on the problem, you're only going to get more problems. You focus on the solution, the problem's going to fix themselves.
I love
so always be a problem solver and just find the solutions to get things done.
I love that. Well, hey, and also too, I really appreciate you coming out today, Randy. That was an awesome podcast. One of my favorite ones so far. Tell the people a little bit about where can they find you at? Where can they get in touch with you if they're out there in California thinking about making the move? How can they find you?
Our office is in Downey, California, here in Southern California. My website is Randy the Broker. randythebroker.com. My emails are randy@randythebroker.com, and
Nice.
my phone number is on there. It's 310-422-4238. It's my direct line. And I'm here, man. I'm always, I always pick up my phone. If I don't, you're always going to get a call back from me. I believe it's very important to always answer that phone, so even if it's a spam call, because you never know. I
Absolutely,
thought
yeah.
when you called, you were calling from Dallas, and I thought, oh, great, another spam call. But you know what? I'm going to pick it up. And I did.
I
And
love
now here we are,
I love it. I
so
love it. Yeah, I
yeah.
appreciate it. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
No, hey,
So,
that's awesome. We'll link everything down below there, guys. So if you're in the California area, you're maybe an agent looking for, a broker that'll take care of you, or maybe you're, thinking of making that move and looking for someone to help us, facilitate and find a new property. Randy's our guy here. So we'll link everything down below. We'll have everything, website, phone number, everything, and contact details linked down there. But once again, Randy, I really do thank you for giving us some time and coming out to the podcast today.
no, thank you, Jake. It's been a pleasure.